I shaved my head for sanity. I shaved my head to not live under the thumb of hair loss. I shaved my head for freedom. I shaved my head for me, not for anybody else. So today I want to talk about why I shaved my head for hair loss after over 2 decades of having lived with hair loss, and if it was worth it. It's been over 2 years since I shaved my head, which I shaved it May of 2023. And right now I'm kind of on a every 3 week kind of schedule of shaving. It's kind of fluctuated over time, but it's kind of essentially dictated by the way my scalp is, because I do get folliculitis from shaving. So to shave my head, I actually have to treat my scalp daily. So for the privilege of shaving my head, I have to treat my scalp. So that kind of answers if it's worth it for me. Yes, it's worth it. Backing up a little bit. Well, first of all, let's take this off. So we are on the shaved head page. All right. So going back in time a little bit, just not too far back in time, share this so people can make the decision for themselves based on their own, situation, what they may feel has value or no value, or how it may apply to them or not. I had been living with female pattern baldness for over 2 decades. I'd started wearing wigs in 2012 when I was 34 years old, and I cut my hair to a very short haircut. Even having a short haircut when you're dealing with hair loss, it can really help you because you see less of the fall, which is good for your mind. Because to me, seeing the fall is one of the most debilitating aspects of hair loss, aside from all else, but actually seeing the continual fall really takes a toll. So you see less of the fall because obviously shorter strand is visually less, and then shorter hair just happens to look thicker. So that's just a universal thing. Even just a trim, you'd be surprised. Like most people don't even realize, like even 2 or 3 inches can make their hair look fuller, even if it's still longer. But you cut it super short and it starts to look thicker. So I gave myself a really short haircut around the time, this first year that I started wearing wigs in 2012, that had 2 purposes. One, it made wig wearing easier, but 2, I also wanted to move forward. I didn't want to be constantly being crippled in the shower, and also just seeing how it looked was just so destructive for my mind because could never get back to where it was at that point. I mean, it had been X amount of years, when I started wearing wigs, that my hair had devolved to a point that it would never be what it once was. And seeing it that way was just so hard for me. In cutting it short, it looked thicker. It kind of looked like an edgy choice because it had like a shaved back down at the nape and then a longer front to blend with my closed front wigs, which is a wig with no lace. And so I had a dual way to live with my wigs, when I wanted to present myself that way to the world. And then without my wigs, when I wanted to work out or do anything else, like it never was, one or the other. Since starting to wear wigs, I've had a dual hair life, some with wigs, some without wigs. And everybody in my life knew, eventually knew that was the way it was. So they expected that I could show up with a wig or without a wig. Oftentimes people say, how do you work out in a wig? I've tried it. I don't like it. You can. Many people do. I just don't. I wore nothing or I wore a beanie. I made it work that way. So just depends on us. But how did this change? In 2022, when my father died, I ended up getting an autoimmune hair loss. This is a different topic, but I always used to kind of eye roll the concept of like stress and hair loss. Does stress cause hair loss? Like eye roll, because I was so dismissed as having that. And that wasn't the case. I had genetic hair loss, apparently female pattern baldness, but I never really took a hard look at the stress angle of hair loss, but it actually indeed can certainly trigger an autoimmune hair loss, which was the case for me. With that type of hair loss, my temples were blowing out, and it's actually still not great particularly on this side. I can see it when I was setting up this camera here, and there's a mirror right behind you over there. And I was just like, ugh, like in certain lightings, I can catch it more than not. People sometimes online, they just see a person with hair or, like shaved head, and it just like looks fine to them. They're not picking up on what I know, and what I see. So they're dismissive oftentimes of like, I don't get it. I see hair on your head. They think bald has to mean there's not one follicle, or balding means there's no follicles or whatever. And that's just not the case. It's very pronounced. The thinning is extremely pronounced, particularly on this right temple, but it was blowing back. And so 2022 was so hard for me. It was so hard for me because my wigs were no longer working. So the temples, I couldn't pull out the hair around the temples with a closed front wig. You're pulling out your hair to blend the hairline. And there was nothing at the front here because it was moving back. And I couldn't even pull out, I always had hair to pull out over the tabs on the sideburn area. And that was even going, it was so thin. So this made it even more apparent as to what was going on. My wig life was affected by my enhanced balding state by this second type of hair loss. And it was just tormenting me. It was tormenting me. I mean, so much of 2022, I was tormented by what was happening with the second hair loss. And I'd already been living with hair loss for so long. I'd already done the initial stages of dealing with female pattern hair loss, the loss within that, then the acceptance, then the wearing wigs, then cutting my hair, then navigating that. It was just part of my life. I wore my wigs, I cut my hair. I never loved getting haircuts. It was always like not fun for me, but I liked the after, like getting it back into where it needed to be and carrying on to the next time. But this was no longer a thing. I couldn't make this work anymore. There was nothing that I could do to make this work. And I just have my camera rolls like filled with like creature-ish photos of like just my face just looks like it's in so much pain because I was in pain. I was in so much distress about how can lightning strike twice? And also I didn't have a diagnosis to that until November of 2022 when a dermatologist diagnosed me with an autoimmune hair loss on top of my female pattern baldness. And the reason for shaving my head, it's kind of in a different way, but similar-ish to why I cut my hair short, but not really. But my hair was continuing to fall out. So now with as little hair that was on my head, not much, it was continuing to fall out all over the place. So you can do that. You're like doing the math in your head when you barely have any on your head already. The temple's already gone. And now it's falling all over your laptop and your shirt and all over. It's consuming my thoughts all over again, like it used to do. And I didn't want to live that way. The whole point of structuring my hair loss life the way that I did was so that I wasn't living under the thumb of hair loss. And then here I was under the thumb of hair loss. So really, there was no shorter of a haircut that was going to work and to blend in the extremely thin areas other than a shaved head. But I could not pull the trigger on that. It's just like I couldn't do it. I tried January of 2023 and I have a video of just me sitting on the floor crying, not because I turned on the camera to film myself crying, but because I had planned on filming the shave and all I got was footage of me in a wig, not even attempting to shave my head, just sitting there in a puddle of tears because I couldn't do it. I was tormented by this. So eventually in May, I was able to get the resolve that this is something that just needed to be done. Eventually in May, I was able to get the strength, resolve, or whatever to move the needle on shaving my head. It wasn't me that shaved my head. It was a friend of mine that shaved my head for me. And that goes to another thing, like shaving, should you shave your own head or should you have somebody do it? For me, it was easier to have somebody else shave my head than for me to shave it myself. Because what's easier? Like if you have to punch, if the thing is, you got to get socked in the face. Like there's no way around that. You're going to have to get socked in the face. That's some weird rule for the day, right? What is going to be easier? Are you going to be able to sock yourself at the correct, level you're supposed to with the correct force you're supposed to? Or can someone else, if you're like, just sock me in the face, you do it. Which one's going to be easier? We have a protective mechanism with us that's not going to allow us to sock ourselves in the face, I think, or I do. And so it was much easier to pass that, sock me in the face off to somebody else. I think everyone's different on that. And some people would probably prefer to do it alone in their house, in their bathroom without anybody around. I could not do it. I definitely needed that very first one was the only shave that I had not done myself. And subsequently every shave since then I've done myself. And the feeling I had afterwards was just ultimate relief. Honestly, it was total relief. Why? Because I was more than ready for this to happen. I was more than ready for this to occur. I just couldn't manifest it. I don't think that everybody needs to shave their head. And I do think that a person needs to be in the right state of mind to shave their head. That includes like, if you're already wearing wigs and you're wearing closed front wigs, you're going to need to have planned for like a lace front because a closed front wig is not going to look natural with no hair to blend. There are like things that have to be set into place. Also, your wigs won't fit the same. That's another consideration with a shaved head. And they could fit differently. Could, make, adjustments for that. But still, these are things that are considerations. Mainly, if you're wearing a closed front wig and you're shaving your head, you need to know that you're very likely going to need a lace front wig or bangs to make that wig look natural. So planning goes into that. Nobody really prepares you for what you look like with a shaved head. For me, it was like all growing up, everybody used to say I look like one of my brothers. And they're like, they could tell instantly. I never saw it. And like the day that my head was shaved, I was like, there's my brother staring back at me. Didn't know he was coming to the shave party, but there he was. But nobody really prepares you for how you look in a shaved head. And it's 2 years. It's over 2 years because it was May of 2023, and I'm still not adjusted to it. It's not my preferred look. I prefer to see myself with hair. But just like I lived my life before in a dual wig life and bio hair life, I still do the same now. So I go out with my shaved head and I go out with a wig. And what determines that is just how I'm feeling or what I'm doing. Your head gets a lot colder when you don't have any hair. Even a thinning head of hair is providing warmth, where no hair on your head, it's cold. So, I mean, I got a whole array of hoodies that I'm often walking around with my hoodie up. And it's because, not because I think it's the stylish thing to do, it's because my head is cold and I don't have a beanie or I don't feel like wearing a beanie. Also, as it pertains to wig life and even beanie life, when you have a shaved head, it acts for myself and many other people as a bit of a Velcro, which is a plus for in wig life. Not sure why that is, but it does. When the more it grows out, the less of that Velcro-ness occurs. The tighter of a shave it is, the more Velcro-ness is there. I typically shave at a 1 guard. I've done a no guard. However, I've kind of landed on the 1 because I have folliculitis. I have a very sensitive scalp. So I couldn't even get lucky in the shaving the head department. Like you see people shaving their head all around, left, right, up and down. They've got head care routines. I cannot do that. I have to actually treat my scalp for the privilege of being able to shave my head every single day since the day that not nearly since the day, but because I went to that same dermatologist about my folliculitis situation from shaving my head. And when she walked in, actually, she was just like, she looked emotionally affected, actually. She's like, was her only second patient ever that had shaved their head for hair loss. And she's like, oh, I failed as a doctor, or like I was a kind of an odd reaction. But anyways, I wanted to address the bumps, to which her suggestion was not to shave my head, not really going to happen. So she didn't really get the magnitude of what I was dealing with here. But anyways, this is, if anybody has this situation, because it does happen, not everybody can freely shave their head and not have scalp irritation. I ended up using Panoxyl, which is 10% benzoyl peroxide, every single day when I shower. Every single day I use this, and it's drying. Yes, I know. People are like, you shouldn't use it every day. Well, I mean, this is where we are. Okay, we got to do what we have to do. So Panoxyl, 10% benzoyl peroxide. I was prescribed 2% ketoconazole, which is Nizoral is the 1% over-the-counter version. I do not use the 2% because it burns. It's too much for me. So I use the 1% of the Nizoral along with the 10% benzoyl peroxide. Now, I alternate with the Nizoral and Head and Shoulders in the shower every day, depending on what I feel like. And then after, I put on clindamycin, which is a topical, and that is a prescription. I have to do this every day for the privilege of shaving my head. So do I think that shaving my head is worth it? Yes. Has it been easy? No, because I was very used to wearing wigs a certain way, very used to dealing with my hair loss life a certain way. Your clothes look different when you have a shaved head. I find it's better, things that have a higher neck to my like higher neck on up my neck, the clothing items, whether it's a turtleneck or a hoodie that's tighter up, frame my shaved head better than if it was a lower item, like a V-neck or something like that with a shaved head. I tend to feel like I look like a pinhead or bobblehead. So I do like things higher up on the neck if I'm on a shaved state. That's not always the case, like I go out that way, but I'm just aware that these are suboptimal looks in a shaved head for me. I need something more framing around my neck for it to look more balanced. Our hair balances our features. Our hair balances our face. Like people just think like, whatever, like it's just hair. Well, it also provides warmth. I mean, there are actual reasons for hair. So I have a cold head and I have to medically treat it to be able to shave my head. And yes, I still think it was worth it. I have no plans to regrow my hair out because I can see through the mirror where the areas that are still more thinned than they should be to be able to maintain the haircut that I had before. It would still start to look carved out on the temples, like pretty carved out. And then I would start to see the fall more. And then my head would look more imbalanced in shape. A couple of people have insulted the shape of my head actually, but it will look more out of shape if it has hair coming out of it, because it's going to look more imbalanced, particularly to my own eyes, which is I'm the one that has to live in this body and it has to look right to me. So I shaved my head for sanity. I shaved my head to not live under the thumb of hair loss. I shaved my head for freedom. I shaved my head for me, not for anybody else. Nobody has to understand this situation or how many follicles. They want to count the follicles and be like, well, you still have hair. Nobody has to get it. I get it. I know what I've been through. Do I think it was worth it? Absolutely. Do I wish I did it sooner? In my particular case, with my story, I wish I did it sooner within the second hair loss. Not like I wish I did it sooner in the totality of my hair loss life. No. But when the rubber met the road, after I got the second hair loss in 2022, yes, I do wish that I was able to shave it sooner because I suffered so much. And if I had shaved it sooner, I would have suffered less. That's just a fact. For me, in my situation, I would have suffered less. So I do wish I shaved it sooner, but only by the year prior, not since 1999. And everyone will feel differently on this as to what works for them. And I need to point that out because, but for getting a second hair loss, I do not believe I would have shaved my head if I could have kept, chugging along the way I was. It was thinning hair. I did the cut that I thought worked for me. You get used to doing certain things, like you push your hair behind your ears. There's a comfort in that, with your bio hair, even if it's short. There's certain things that are part of us, and you don't have any hair. You can't do these things. There's nothing that to feel comfort on your head. So letting that go, all of that go was an adjustment. But given the state that I was put in by the universe, yes, it was the right move. And yes, I do wish I did it sooner by only 1 year. I think when we're dealing in hair loss, you want to stay ahead of trying to help yourself suffer the least amount, right? So it could be in planning or thought, maybe even looking at wigs if you're considering that. Getting rid of the fear. A lot of what makes this whole process scary is fear of the unknown, all this. And pulling back the curtain on some of that can help demystify that even for yourself so that you're not afraid. And so even if you're not pulling the trigger on any of it yet, even cutting your hair short or even getting a wig, or maybe it's treating your hair loss, but you're letting the ideas into your mind, you're kind of like adjusting to it. You're allowing yourself to go there. You're allowing your brain to go there. And I think there's a healing benefit to doing that. And nobody can decide what you should or should not do. I always say that. And what somebody else does or I do, or, it's not better or worse than anybody else. The only thing that matters is what helps you live your best life. What is going to help you live your best life? What are the pros to shaving for me? Yes, I don't see the hair fall out. I keep it so short that there's no way to see the hair fall out at this length. I think I shaved it last week on Thursday. So this is what a one guard looks like nearly a weekend. I would probably shave it weekly if I didn't have folliculitis, to be honest with you. And anybody is curious, I use the wall magic clip cordless, this particular shaver here. I really like it. Not that I have a whole vast experience with it, but I had one before that I did not like as much. It was pink. That was kind of cool, but I did not like it as much. So the right shaver, I think, also makes a difference. And so did I answer that question? Shaving my head for hair loss. Why? And was it worth it? Yes, that's why. And yes, it was worth it. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. And if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button. I would greatly appreciate it. Consider subscribing to the channel. I do have a wide list of things I'd like to talk about in this more of a long format, which I haven't done in a while. So we'll see how that goes. But I appreciate you being here. I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you.